Hey guys, so in this video we're going to talk about rules or Navisworks Clash rules. They're really handy for a variety of different things, and there's different ways to handle how you go about using them. Because in some instances, let's say, so the example we're going to go through is devices and fixtures. So those devices that you have in Revit, uh, such as outlets or communication devices, security, whatever the case, that are mounted on a wall. Uh, you know, Probably 99% of the time, you do not want to see these as a clash, so you don't want to pick them up. And outlets and a lot of these devices, like the data devices, there's tons of them in a project, so naturally you'll get a ton of clashes. Well, we can use rules to ignore those. Now, kind of what I mean it by like having different approaches to it is that um, we can easily go into our NWC or like our Revit NW or Navisworks view that we export, and we can turn off the categories for all devices and fixtures, and that would do the job. We wouldn't pick up those clashes anymore. But as you see here, we have a curtain wall, and most likely, this would be a clash and something we need to coordinate. We need to shift these outlets somewhere else or these devices somewhere else, get them out of this curtain wall. So we still, in some cases, want that in there. Now, it's really up to you. If you're getting a lot of stuff from lighting, maybe you just want to hide it. You can just, hide it, run the clash. You don't get those anymore. But that's where I think rules really come in handy, because lighting, may want to, ignore it when we're running on architectural, or at least ignore certain things like ceilings, but not other elements like HVAC systems that are running directly through the lights. Whatever the case, we have with rules, we can ignore certain things within certain tests. We can apply them to tests that we want. Whereas if we applied it, a view in Revit, an export view, to hide an element, we really have no option after that. All right, so we're going to go through the step of setting this up. So as you see, we have a curtain wall and some walls over here. We have a ton of devices in here. The thing that we want to do is pick up these as clashes and don't pick up these as clashes. So we're going to start off with the Find Items dialog box, which you'll find on the Home tab. And then we'll want to open up the Sets dialog box. Now, if you don't see the Sets dialog box, just go to your View tab, Windows button, and then down here you'll find the Sets button or the Sets checkbox. Just turn that on, and then you'll see the sets. There's two different sets. There's saved search sets, and then there's saved selection sets. We're going to create saved search sets because search sets will actually search for a specific parameter, and it's leveraging that to grab the elements, whereas a selection set is where you manually select items and then save that. That may be useful from project to project, but that's not something that would automatically update or could be applied to every single project that you set up. So just in general, understanding how to set up a search set is incredibly important. It's one of the most important things to know when you're going about setting up a Navisworks template, because it's going to drive your clash tests, it's going to drive your rules, it's going to allow you to select and hide specific things. So there's a variety of different uses for knowing how to create search sets. So with the Find Items dialog box open, we'll start creating that search set. So we'll start off with the item, or actually element. And before I do that, I'm going to open up one more dialog box. So I'm going to jump to the Home tab over here on Properties, and your ribbon may look different. The Properties button may be bigger. I'm going to click on Properties. I'm going to kind of scale that down a little bit. And then I'm going to click on one of these devices. Now, keep this in mind when you're setting up these. Category, when what it's asking for is essentially one of these tabs up here. Any of these could be a category. Element is the one that we're going to leverage because the thing that we're going to be looking for is in this tab. The next one is the property. Now the property is in this row here. So it's in a tab and then within a row. These are the properties. The category one is what we're going to look for the property. The next one is condition, and we have a variety of options there. And then the last one's value. The value is the second column within the categories tab. So everything here is a value. And the value we're going to be looking for is devices and fixtures. And that will cover every device that we have in Revit. So we're going to do a conditions, contains condition, so we can grab those elements. So back here, we're going to switch this item to element. And you can drag these out if you can't see exactly what's going on there. I'm going to close this properties panel. I'm going to go into properties and I'm going to look for category. So you can click C. It'll jump you to the first word with C in it. Click on that, conditions, contains, and we can extend this value drop down and it'll give us all the different items in there. And you can see there's devices and then there's fixtures. We want to grab both of them. So we're going to do devices. And then element. We're going to do the same thing for this category, contains, and then now we're going to look for fixtures. Now, being that, so the way that this is set up is essentially an and parameter or search set. So it's going to say, element category contains devices and element category contains fixtures. So this actually won't grab anything in the project. So what we're going to do is click OK there and then go back into this. We're going to right click on the second row there. And then we're going to change that to an or condition. And then now we can find all devices within the project. So keep that in mind. You can switch it to an or. And if you remember, that was an update in Revit where they allowed you to have or conditions. So and is, if it had devices and fixtures in the category name, then it had to be true in both instances for it to grab that element. Now, if we switch that that second row to an or, then that element can then be an or, on top of the devices. So devices has to be true, and then or fixtures can be true. So it's an or statement that you can leverage for choosing a variety of different elements, and you don't have to have everything true, in this find items dialog box. So with that, and we've tested it, it works. So now what we can do is save this search set. So over here in the sets dialog box, we can right click, we can save search. And then we'll just say devices and fixtures. Now we can come back in here and update this if we want to add more. And we do. So we want to add a walls one. So we're going to click this and delete all conditions. Again, walls is a category, so we can click on that and verify it by clicking on the element. Actually, before we do that, just jump out to the Home tab, click on Properties, click on the element, or if you have that element still selected, browse through this, and then we can find what the property is for this element. And so you can see we're actually running into a problem right now. The selection is actually drilling down into the last item within the selection tree, which is only giving us some of the parameters. And if we drill up, we can now see that we can get the element tab up here. To change that so you don't have to keep doing that manually, you'll just have to go in here and say, I think it may be last object, so we're just going to test it out. So last object, just switch it to last object, and then you can select on that item, and then it'll jump you down there. But as you see, it kind of has trouble sometimes, so you may have to switch it back and forth between items. And we'll try one more, and we'll say last unique. And in this instance, it gives us the correct, but in this one, it doesn't. So in some cases, you may have to kind of switch this around to get it to show the right properties. So now what we're going to do is find that categories property in here. So category, and then for the value, walls. So we're going to set that up in here. And the reason why we have to do this is for the clash test and for the rules. So we're going to go in here and grab elements, properties. We're going to jump to category, conditions. For this one, we can actually do an equals, and then we could say walls. And then now we can come over here, create a new search set, and we can just call this one walls. All right. So for the elements over here, we're going to have to create a search set for this as well. So there is a couple ways to go about this. You can actually drill into the NWC and then clash against that entire model. But since we have everything kind of living in here, we're not going to drill into that, because the NWC does have a properties that we can call on. We can say, you know, if it contains this in the name and then .nwc, clash that. That's a good way to set up if you're exporting multiple disciplines. It's a good way to clash models. And then with the sub rules in there, you can ignore certain things. But we're not going to go about it that way. Since everything is within this same NWC, we're just going to clash everything in there. So we're going to have to create search sets to do that. So the next one is going to be for the curtain walls. And then we're also going to grab those walls as well. Or I'm sorry, we're going to grab just the curtain walls for this example. So again, we can select on that item, find element, and then see what's going on here. So element, category, curtain walls. So back in the find items dialog box, we can jump down to element, category, conditions, equals. We'll drop this down and then select curtain panels. And yes, so just curtain panels. And then we'll save that search set. All right, so now we're going to jump into the clash test, and we're going to set this to clash. Now you may be thinking that we can just grab the curtain walls and clash against devices, but I want to show this in case you have your clash test, or say you have search sets and your clash is already set up and they're grabbing every single device and every single element in the architectural model and clashing them into one another, then after the fact, if you set up some extra search sets, you can drill down and ignore certain things through rules. You may want to apply this as well if you're clashing a discipline against another discipline. So, you're exporting out an NWC from the Arch model, you're exporting out an NWC out of the electrical model, you're clashing those against each other, and then from there, you may want to ignore certain things instead of hiding things within the electrical export view within Revit. So we're going to come up to the home, to the home tab, click the Clash Detective button, expand this window a little bit. All right, so now we'll go ahead and add a new test. We'll say devices versus walls. So say this is a test that's already set up. We want to ignore the electrical elements in this. So if you don't have sets, you actually won't see this here in this dropdown. As soon as you create those search sets, you'll see this is an option. You can click on it and now start to grab those items. We'll start off with devices and fixtures. We'll move over to the selection B, and then we'll choose walls and curtain panels. And we'll go ahead and run this test. Click Update All. We're going to zoom out a little bit and just make sure that our search sets are working correctly, and they are. We'll update this again, and there it goes. So now we have our 12 clashes. We can drill down into those by jumping over to the results. And then let's turn on or turn off hide other, and then zoom out, and we can see that we're picking up everything. So we're picking up the walls, everything else. Now we can update this test to just ignore those walls, but we're not going to do it that way. We're going to use a rule instead. Again, for this particular example, it's going to be worth going into that test and just changing it if you have those search sets there. But if you're using NWCs and stuff, then this method may be a little bit better, because you can selectively kind of go through and apply these rules to specific tests, especially if you have a lot. In the template that I helped develop, we have about 45 different tests. We clash NWC against NWC. We apply these rules to selected clash tests. So right now there's a whole bunch of tests in here. We're going to create a new one. By default, you shouldn't have any in there. You may have a couple. I'm not entirely sure. But whatever the case, just click new, and then from here we can start with a name. So we can just say, devices, ignore walls. And now we want to do is come down here, specified selection set. Now we have a whole bunch of different options here. The one that I use the most is specified selection set. So I can click on that, and then from here we can go drill into our selection sets that we just created and apply them. So the first one we'll do is the devices. So we'll click devices and fixtures. We'll click OK. The second one we'll do, and if you click on the set, you can select walls, and then we'll press OK. And then when we're done, we'll click OK. And you can see our new test pops up down here. And all we have to do to apply it, so I'm going to uncheck these ones so they don't get in the way. All you have to do is apply it to this test is by just clicking that checkbox. Up here you can see it's just telling you, hey, it's out of date. because you've just changed a subsetting to that clash test. So you may want to update it. All right, with that clicked, now if we jump to results, now and then update all, you'll see that it updates the clashes. Now you may need to reset this clash test. I had to, and you can right click on that, click reset, and then you can update all, and then you'll get your 6 clashes. So keep that in mind. So you may actually still see clashes happening over here. That could be that the resolved ones are still in the Navis model. And if you have any issues with that, just come up here, do a reset, and then run that clash, and then it should be good after that. So you can see we're just picking up the devices that are in the curtain panels, and then over here we're getting none of the clashes that are in the wall, even though our clash test is set up to grab elements in devices and clash them against walls. So hopefully this kind of gets you up and running with rules. There's a variety of different things you can do with them. Check them out. Let me know if there's any cool things you're using them for, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot for watching. See you guys in the next one.